If you're over 60, there's a walking habit you might be doing every single day that could silently, without a whisper of warning, be increasing your risk of a stroke. And it's not during your vigorous stride or even when you're re-pushing yourself on the path. No, the danger lurks much later, while you're deeply asleep. There's no chest pain to alert you, no sudden dizziness to make you pause, no telltale signs at all. One moment, you're perfectly fine, enjoying the quiet of your sleep, and the next, you could wake up unable to move your arm. Your words may come out slurred and unintelligible, or the entire world might feel like it's spinning out of control. As a brain doctor, I've witnessed this tragedy far too often. Vibrant, active older adults suddenly struck down by devastating strokes. And heartbreakingly, it wasn't due to the usual suspects like a history of smoking or dangerously high cholesterol. It was because of something they wholeheartedly believed was beneficial, even essential, for their health. I'm talking about walking. Yes, the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other. But when it's done the wrong way, at the wrong time, or with the wrong habits, this otherwise healthy activity can quietly, insidiously damage your circulation, encourage the formation of silent blood clots, and tragically, set the perfect stage for a stroke, and the window of highest vulnerability for your brain. Those quiet, dark hours between 2 o'clock a.m. and 6 o'clock a.m. In this crucial video, I am going to pull back the curtain and reveal 9 specific walking mistakes that I've personally seen cause real, life-altering harm in older adults, even those who appear to be the picture of health. I'll share stories of real patients, individuals who genuinely thought they were doing everything perfectly right, until a single, seemingly ordinary walk changed their lives forever. If you cherish your brain, value your independence, or deeply care for someone you love, please do not miss this vital information. Before we delve into these insights, if you haven't yet joined our community, I sincerely recommend you click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you'll never miss another crucial health tip that's been crafted specifically with you in mind. And if you find this video helpful, please take a moment to type 1 in the comments below. If it doesn't quite hit the mark, type 0 instead. Your feedback genuinely helps me create better, more impactful content for you. 1. Walking without water, often leading to dehydration-induced clots. Most of the seniors I know take immense pride in their active lifestyles. A morning stroll or an afternoon ramble isn't just exercise. It's an ingrained part of their routine, a cornerstone of their identity. For many, it symbolizes enduring independence, unwavering discipline, and even a profound sense of hope. And they are absolutely right to believe that walking can be a powerful, almost miraculous medicine for both body and brain. But what if I were to tell you that this very act, done without one incredibly simple companion, a glass of water, could subtly, silently be predisposing you to a stroke as you sleep? Let me elaborate. As a dedicated brain doctor, I've encountered a heartbreaking number of older adults who walk diligently, maintain a healthy diet, and staunchly avoid smoking, yet still succumb to a stroke without any prior warning. One evening, they're perfectly lucid and feeling fine. The very next morning, they awaken unable to speak, or in the most tragic instances, they don't awaken at all. In several of these poignant cases, the true culprit wasn't an obvious threat like clogged arteries or an erratic heartbeat known as atrial fibrillation. Instead, it was something far more insidious. Dehydration. It's silent, it's creeping, and it is consistently underestimated. You see, as we gracefully age, our natural sense of thirst tends to diminish. The same walk that felt incredibly energizing and refreshing at 50 can lead to dangerously significant water loss at 70, even if it's just a 20 or 30-minute circuit around the neighborhood block. Seniors simply lose fluid more rapidly, their kidneys filter less efficiently, and consequently, their blood can become noticeably more concentrated. And that thicker, more sluggish blood has an inherent, dangerous instinct. It wants to form clots. These tiny, yet potentially catastrophic clots can then quietly travel through your bloodstream to your brain while you're peacefully asleep, blocking the vital flow of oxygen in a matter of mere seconds. I will never forget the story of Mr. Jameson, a spry 79-year-old former firefighter from Colorado Springs. He was in superb physical condition, boasting strong legs, clear, perceptive eyes, the quintessential image of someone aging with remarkable grace. He walked religiously every day, come rain or shine, through all seasons. Yet, he absolutely detested carrying water. Made him feel like a tourist, he'd always quip. For over a year, he'd trek 2 miles every afternoon in the dry, thin mountain air, then return home, eat dinner, and simply relax. No water before, none after. He truly believed it didn't matter, until one dreadful morning, his wife discovered him collapsed on the floor, his right side alarmingly paralyzed, his mouth hanging open in a silent scream. He had suffered a left middle cerebral artery stroke, one of the most devastating and impactful types. His laboratory tests showed elevated blood viscosity, essentially, thicker blood, and undeniable signs of mild chronic dehydration. There were no blockages from plaque, no heart arrhythmias, but there were undeniably clots, small sticky clots that had likely formed over months of walking while persistently dehydrated, silently threatening his brain, until one finally blocked a crucial vessel during the vulnerable hours of the night. Here's a critical insight many seniors often miss. Even mild dehydration can thicken your blood by a measurable 10% or more. That seemingly slight increase is more than enough to significantly slow circulation in your brain's most delicate, tiniest vessels. And your brain, already inherently more vulnerable at night due to a natural dip in blood pressure and reduced oxygenation, becomes an unfortunately perfect target. It's not merely about how far or how often you walk. It's profoundly about whether your blood remains fluid enough to safely and efficiently nourish your brain after physical exertion. Without adequate hydration, your beneficial walk can tragically transform into a physiological stressor rather than the intended benefit. And this isn't solely a concern during extreme heat or the summer months. In fact, dehydration can be even more perilous in the colder, dry winter air, when our natural sense of thirst is often suppressed. I have had patients experience strokes in the dead of January after a seemingly harmless short walk on a crisp, cold morning, never suspecting that the invigorating air was slowly, stealthily drawing moisture from their lungs and skin, gradually thickening their blood by the time they drifted off to sleep. It's a quiet, insidious danger, and perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect is how profoundly and easily preventable it is. So, here is my earnest advice to every senior watching this. Before every single walk, make it a non-negotiable habit to drink 6 to 8 ounces of room temperature water. And after your walk, drink another full glass. Do not wait until you feel thirsty. By that point, your body is already playing catch-up. Carry a small, convenient water bottle with you. If you ever feel dizzy, experience a dry mouth, or feel unusually fatigued after walking, you might already be dehydrated. These are your body's precious, early warning signals. Please, do not ignore them. Mr. Jameson miraculously survived, but he can no longer drive, a significant loss of independence. He now navigates the world with the aid of a cane. When I visited him during his rehabilitation, he shared quietly, his voice tinged with regret, "I truly believed I was doing everything right. I never knew that simply forgetting water could strip away my independence." That is precisely why I am sharing his deeply personal story, so that it doesn't tragically become yours. And while dehydration might seem like an obvious, albeit overlooked, danger, the next walking habit I'm about to reveal is one that almost no one ever discusses. Yet it may be subtly damaging your brain every single time you step outside. What if I told you that sunlight, the very radiant thing we so often praise for its role in vitamin D production, could quietly be triggering inflammation within your brain's delicate blood vessels, thus increasing your risk of a hemorrhagic stroke? Stay with me, because habit number 2 might surprise you even more than this one. If you're still watching and finding these insights genuinely helpful, please take a moment to comment number 1 below to let me know you're still with me on this journey. Now, let's move on to point number 2. 2. Walking without sun protection, which can increase stroke-linked inflammation. As a brain doctor who has had the privilege of caring for thousands of seniors across this country, there's one subtle, yet profoundly dangerous factor I observe being overlooked every single day. The sun, and I'm not just referring to its obvious heat, but the long-term cumulative effects of unprotected sun exposure during your routine walks. Especially for older adults, this silent habit can quietly elevate your risk of inflammation, cause insidious vascular damage, and ultimately, pave the way for a stroke. Many seniors absolutely adore their afternoon walks beneath the open sky, and understandably so. Sunshine simply feels good. It genuinely lifts your mood, provides essential vitamin D, and often evokes cherished memories of a life joyously spent outdoors. But what many older adults do unfully grasp is that the sun is no longer the same benevolent friend it once was. As we age, our skin gradually loses its protective layers. Our immune system naturally weakens, and our blood vessels, particularly those intricately feeding the brain, become noticeably more fragile, more reactive, and significantly more prone to inflammatory damage. Ultraviolet UV radiation from the sun isn't just a superficial risk to your skin's surface. It sends a silent, alarming signal throughout your entire vascular system. Chronic sun exposure, even as little as 20 minutes a day without proper protection, relentlessly triggers oxidative stress, causes inflammation of the delicate inner lining of blood vessels, what we call the endothelium, and disrupts the smooth flow of blood. In older adults who already contend with pre-existing hypertension or stiff arteries, this combination rapidly becomes a perfect storm for disaster. That inflammation, critically, isn't always felt immediately. It builds up silently, subtly. Over time, your arteries progressively narrow, stiffen, and become increasingly vulnerable to These are tiny blood clots that may form after repeated exposure to environmental stressors like unrelenting sun, persistent dehydration, or excessive heat. And once these minute clots begin to form, they don't require permission to travel. If one makes its perilous journey toward the brain and blocks a critical artery during the quiet hours of sleep, the outcome can be sudden, profound, and irreversible. A stroke. Allow me to share the story of Mrs. Elaine Madsen, a graceful 76-year-old widow from Tempe, Arizona. A sweet, kind woman who cherished her daily afternoon walk with her small terrier, Pepper, just before the desert sunset. She never gave it a second thought. She wore comfortable sandals, never a hat, and always said sunglasses made her feel too dressed up. She firmly believed she was doing something wonderful for her body, but gradually, over time, her blood pressure readings began to fluctuate erratically. She started experiencing persistent fatigue, occasional dizziness, and blurry vision symptoms she unfortunately dismissed as simply normal aging. Until one early morning, her daughter found her on the kitchen floor, utterly unable to speak, her face drooping alarmingly on one side. A left-sided ischemic stroke had tragically robbed her of her ability to communicate. When we meticulously examined her medical records and blood work, we found no signs of atrial fibrillation, no major plaque buildup in her arteries. But what we did observe was clear evidence of chronic endothelial inflammation. Significantly elevated C-reactive protein, a well-known marker for vascular stress, and undeniable signs of oxidative damage. I strongly believe her daily unprotected walks in the dry, intense Arizona sun had gradually, yet relentlessly, inflamed the delicate vessels within her brain, triggering the formation of insidious clots and critically weakening the protective barrier between her blood and her brain tissue. Here's what makes this scenario so terrifying. Elaine didn't feel sick. She wasn't engaging in any obviously wrong behaviors. She wasn't smoking, wasn't overexerting herself. Yet, she was unknowingly cultivating a dangerous brain environment where a stroke could, and eventually did, happen overnight. All because she didn't adequately protect herself from something as seemingly innocuous as sunlight. What could she have done differently? As we age, our bodies process sunlight in fundamentally different ways. The same 15-minute walk that once gave you a healthy tan at 40 might now, at 70, cause significant vascular irritation. The eyes, in particular, serve as a direct window into the brain. Unfiltered UV light directly damages the retinal arteries and the optic nerve, dramatically increasing the risk of both vision loss and dangerous cerebral inflammation. That's why I now emphatically urge every senior patient of mine, if you walk outside, even for just 10 minutes, you must protect yourself diligently. Wear a wide-brimmed hat that effectively shades your entire face and neck. Choose UV protective sunglasses that wrap snugly around your temples, providing comprehensive coverage. Utilize lightweight, long-sleeved clothing if you're exposed to strong sun. And critically, avoid peak UV hours, which are typically between 10 o'clock a.m. and 4 o'clock p.m. Sun protection isn't about vanity or merely looking younger. It is fundamentally about preserving the profound health of your brain, the clarity of your eyes, and your cherished independence. Elaine is currently undergoing intensive speech therapy. She is walking again, this time with a cane, a protective hat, and her new UV-rated sunglasses. She told me, with considerable effort, "I never knew the sun could hurt my brain. I honestly thought it only aged my skin." That tragic misunderstanding cost her a significant part of her independence. It doesn't have to cost you yours. If you've been walking without sun protection, especially in warm or arid climates, I urgently implore you to take this warning very seriously. Your brain remembers everything you do for it, and perhaps, even more critically, everything you don't. But if you find sun exposure to be a surprisingly hidden danger, wait until you hear what happens when you walk entirely alone, with no one there to catch the subtle, crucial signs if something goes amiss. What if your very next walk was the one where your legs suddenly failed you, and there was absolutely no one around to notice? Stay with me. Habit number 3 may be the most isolating and perhaps the most dangerous stage of them all. 3. Walking in isolation, with no one to notice warning signs. There's an undeniable beauty in the act of walking alone. For many older adults, it represents a precious moment of quiet peace, a daily ritual to gather thoughts, simply enjoy nature's embrace, or perhaps feel just a little more in control of their day. You might not desire conversation, companionship, or any unnecessary noise. After all, you've absolutely earned the right to savor solitude. But there's a profound hidden danger lurking within this habit that far too few seniors truly recognize until it's tragically too late. As a brain doctor, I've borne witness to the devastating consequences of walking in isolation, particularly among individuals over 60. It's not because walking itself is inherently bad. Walking is absolutely vital for health. But when you walk entirely alone, there is tragically no one there to notice the subtle, critical signs when your body begins to falter. And in older adults, the early warning signs of a stroke or a transient ischemic attack, TIA, often referred to as a mini-stroke, can be so incredibly subtle, so fleeting, and so easy to dismiss unless someone else is attentively watching. Many strokes don't announce themselves with a dramatic collapse in the street. They often begin with small, almost imperceptible moments. A slight, momentary slurring of words, a few seconds of inexplicable confusion, a brief, fleeting numbness in one arm or leg. And when you are completely alone, you might regrettably attribute these crucial signals to mere fatigue or the natural process of aging. You might not even realize that a tiny blood clot has already begun to form, perhaps due to lingering dehydration, undiagnosed high blood pressure, or chronic inflammation, and is now subtly interrupting the vital flow of oxygen to a vulnerable part of your brain. I will never forget Mr. Leonard Baines, a 75-year-old widower from Minnesota. He was fiercely independent and profoundly proud of that fact. "Doc," he told me with a firm gaze, "I've walked every single day since my wife passed. It keeps me grounded." Every morning, without fail, he walked 2 miles through his familiar neighborhood. No phone, no walking partner, just a light jacket and his trusty baseball cap. One frosty January morning, Leonard experienced what he later described as a weird spell. He suddenly couldn't recall which direction he'd come from. His right leg felt alarmingly heavy, as if it wasn't quite obeying his commands. But no one was around to see. So, he simply rested on a park bench, waited until he felt normal again, and then stoically finished his route. The very next morning, he awoke with a pounding headache, blurred vision, and profound confusion. His worried daughter immediately called 911. He had suffered a cerebral embolism, a devastating type of stroke caused by a clot that had traveled to his brain. And that strange episode on the bench the day before, that was undoubtedly a mini-stroke, his body's desperate, urgent whisper that something was gravely wrong. If someone had been walking with him, a vigilant companion might have noticed his slurred speech, his suddenly staggered gait, his alarming forgetfulness. They might have called for immediate help, potentially before irreversible, permanent damage was done. But he was alone. And so, he waited. And that critical delay cost him dearly. Leonard eventually recovered, but his speech remained slow and measured, and he still struggles significantly with his balance. "I wish someone had been there," he confessed to me later, his voice tinged with melancholy, "just to say, 'Hey Leonard, something's not right.' And that, precisely, is the heart of the matter. You don't walk alone because you are careless. You walk alone because you are strong and value your autonomy. But true strength doesn't equate to refusing help or companionship. It means being wise enough to recognize when your body desperately needs a second set of watchful eyes. Because here's the terrifying truth. Many seniors don't even realize they've had a stroke until days later, and without immediate intervention within those crucial first few hours, the damage can become permanent or, tragically, even fatal. Modern medicine now possesses the remarkable ability to reverse some strokes, but only if they are caught incredibly early. Medications like TPA, tissue plasminogen activator, can effectively dissolve clots, but they must be administered within a very narrow window, typically 3 to 4.5 hours from the onset of symptoms. And if no one witnesses your symptoms begin, that precious window quietly, silently closes while you are resting or waiting. So, what can you do to protect yourself? You absolutely don't have to relinquish your independence, but please consider walking with a partner, even if it's just once or twice a week. Join a local senior walking group. The camaraderie can be incredibly beneficial. Let a neighbor know your planned route and agree to check in with them afterward. At the very least, consistently carry a smartphone or wear a medical alert bracelet that can detect falls or instantly send for help. This small, seemingly insignificant shift in your routine may not seem like much, but it could genuinely be the difference between catching a stroke early and never getting the life-saving chance to. Leonard now walks again, but he walks with his daughter. They chat, they watch out for each other, and he shared something with me that I often reflect upon. Solitude is peaceful, Doc, but silence can be deadly, and he is absolutely right. Now, you might be thinking, as long as I don't overeat or overexert myself, I should be fine, right? But what if the very timing of your walk, precisely when you choose to lace up those sneakers, could quietly escalate your stroke risk by profoundly altering your blood flow after dinner? Coming up next, we'll explore how walking after a heavy evening meal could send your blood pressure soaring overnight, and why your busy digestive system may actually be stealing vital circulation from your brain at the exact moment it needs it most. Stay with me. Habit number 4 may surprise you even more. If you're still with me and finding these insights genuinely valuable, please continue to show your support by commenting number 1 below. Now, let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Walking after a heavy dinner, often leading to bad timing and bad pressure. There's something inherently comforting about taking a leisurely walk after dinner. For many older adults, it has become a cherished habit, a chance to aid digestion, gently unwind from the day's stresses, and perhaps even help to lower blood sugar levels. But what if I were to tell you that this incredibly well-meaning routine, performed at the wrong time, and under the wrong physiological conditions, could quietly and insidiously be increasing your risk of stroke overnight? As a neurologist, I have witnessed this scenario unfold more frequently than you might imagine, particularly in older adults who diligently adhere to routines they've trusted for years. You consume a warm, satisfying dinner, perhaps a little heartier than usual. A savory cut of meat, creamy mashed potatoes, maybe even a relaxing glass of wine. Then, a voice in your head prompts you, I should take a walk. Get things moving. But here's the crucial detail. Most people, fully grasp that post-meal walk may actually be forcing your body to fight a physiological war it simply wasn't built for anymore. After a substantial meal, especially one rich in fats or complex carbohydrates, your body naturally and profoundly shifts blood away from your brain and directs it, instead, toward your industrious digestive system. This phenomenon is scientifically known as postprandial hyperemia, and it is an entirely normal, albeit intense, physiological response. Your stomach and intestines demand a significant surge of extra blood to efficiently process and absorb what you've just eaten. In younger individuals, the body smoothly adjusts to this shift, maintaining equilibrium. However, in older adults, especially those already contending with hypertension, diabetes, or arterial stiffness, this significant shift in blood flow can unfortunately result in reduced cerebral perfusion, meaning less vital blood reaches your brain precisely when it needs it most. Now, introduce a walk into that already complex scenario. Walking, even a gentle one, requires movement, oxygen, increased blood flow to active muscles, and careful regulation of your heart rate. But your body is already fully occupied with the demanding task of digestion. So, from where does it draw that extra much-needed blood? All too often, your brain becomes the unwitting, silent donor. That's precisely when the real danger commences. You might experience mild dizziness, a sudden, inexplicable weakness, or a fleeting sense of disorientation. And in some critical cases, this imbalance can lead to the insidious formation of microblood clots, primarily due to sluggish, pooling blood flow in already narrowed arteries. It's a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, but it's enough to trigger a dangerous cascade of events. That walk, initially intended to promote health, can tragically become a critical tipping point. You eventually drift off to sleep, perhaps feeling full but content. But by the vulnerable early morning hours, as your blood pressure naturally spikes during the crucial REM sleep stage, a clot that formed hours earlier may finally block a fragile cerebral artery. That is exactly what happened to Mrs. Harriet Coulson, a refined 74-year-old retired piano teacher from Albany, New York. She was the epitome of grace, always impeccably polished, always proper. Every evening, like clockwork, around 7 p.m., she would have dinner alone, usually something hearty and comforting that she truly loved. Then, without fail, she'd de-slip on her light jacket and embark on a 20-minute walk around her quiet suburban block. "I'd do it for my digestion," she confidently told me, "makes me feel light before bed." But one ominous morning, her neighbor noticed her newspaper still uncollected on the porch at 9 o'clock a.m. Highly unusual for Harriet. When paramedics eventually arrived, they found her conscious but profoundly confused, utterly unable to speak properly. She had suffered a left hemisphere ischemic stroke, most likely sometime before dawn. Blood work and imaging revealed no major plaques, no atrial fibrillation, but we did find one significant piece of evidence. Her blood pressure had surged dramatically overnight, and her blood was unusually viscous. All signs pointed to her evening routine having quietly set the treacherous stage. I gently inquired about her walk the night before. She recounted having enjoyed pork chops, potatoes, and a slice of apple pie. She had then departed for her walk a mere 15 minutes later. Her body, still strenuously attempting to digest a heavy meal, was forced to compete for crucial circulation. And when the stroke mercilessly struck during her sleep, there was no warning, no sound, just a terrifying silence. Harriet bravely survived. She is currently undergoing speech therapy, but she confided in me recently, "I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. I never knew walking too soon after dinner could steal my words." Her story deeply breaks my heart. Not because she made a deliberate mistake, but because so many seniors unknowingly fall into the same dangerous pattern. They operate under the assumption that if I move more, I'll be healthier. And while that sentiment is fundamentally true, the timing of that movement profoundly matters. For older adults, I strongly recommend waiting at least 90 minutes, or even longer, after consuming a heavy meal before embarking on a walk. And if you absolutely must walk after dinner, keep both the meal and the walk incredibly light. A gentle, leisurely stroll is perfectly acceptable. But longer or brisk walks too soon after eating can severely overload your system. Instead, consider short, gentle, indoor movement, perhaps some light stretching, or engaging in simple housework. Save your more structured, vigorous walking for earlier in the day, when your body is far more prepared and responsive. You don't have to abandon your cherished walks entirely. You simply need to respect what your body is trying to communicate to you now. And remember, your brain is at its most vulnerable at night, when blood pressure naturally rises during REM sleep. If a clot forms earlier in the evening due to poor circulation or an internal blood flow imbalance, it can quietly lie in wait until that perfect storm descends. Harriet walks again, but now she opts for lighter dinners and she waits patiently before moving. She listens intently to her body's wisdom, and she told me, "I finally realized my body isn't 40 anymore. It's not about doing more. It's about doing it wisely." And speaking of wisdom, have you ever considered how the very way you stand and move during your walk might be silently, imperceptibly cutting off vital blood flow to your brain? Coming up next, we'll explore how poor walking posture, especially a common forward head tilt, can slowly squeeze your delicate neck arteries and ultimately lead to a stroke without any prior warning. Do not miss habit number 5. It may be the most overlooked, and tragically, the most dangerous walking mistake of all. 5. Walking with poor posture, the hidden stroke risk most seniors ignore. Most older adults I speak with take immense pride in their daily walks. It's their steadfast way of staying strong, maintaining mobility, and preserving their cherished independence. But very few truly realize that the way you carry yourself, the specific posture you hold during those walks, can quietly and insidiously be putting your precious brain in grave danger. This isn't about how fast you walk, how far you go, or even the fancy equipment you use. It's fundamentally about alignment. And for those over 65, poor walking posture isn't merely uncomfortable. It could, quite literally, be deadly. As we gracefully age, gravity seems to pull a little harder on us. Our shoulders naturally round forward. Our neck begins to tilt downwards. We instinctively shift our gaze toward the ground, often fearing a fall, meticulously trying to spot any uneven pavement. It feels like an instinctive, protective reflex, as if we're safeguarding ourselves. But what we are actually doing, without even being aware of it, is progressively compressing the vital arteries in our neck that supply life-giving blood to our brain, especially the crucial carotid arteries. Your carotid arteries are like high-speed highways that transport oxygen-rich blood directly from your heart straight to your brain. When you chronically bend your neck forward, consistently tilt your head down, or allow your shoulders to slump while walking, You systematically narrow the delicate space in your cervical spine and tragically reduce the efficiency of these critical vessels. In older adults whose arteries may already be stiff or partially narrowed due to plaque buildup, even minor compression can significantly decrease the vital blood flow to the brain. And when blood flow tragically slows, it becomes exponentially more likely that dangerous blood clots will form. The turbulent flow in narrowed arteries can trigger abnormal platelet activity, leading directly to clot formation. And a clot that forms near the base of the skull doesn't have far to travel before reaching the brain. One wrong move, one tiny clot dislodged, one quiet night, and suddenly, devastatingly, you've suffered a stroke in your sleep. Let me introduce you to Mr. Albert Knox, a sharp 78-year-old retired accountant from Illinois. He came to my clinic last year after experiencing a transient ischemic attack, TIA, a mini-stroke. His symptoms were brief but terrifying. He'd been out for his usual morning walk, when he suddenly felt lightheaded and lost his balance. His vision blurred, his left hand tingled, and he had great difficulty forming his words. The episode passed within minutes, but it was enough to profoundly scare him. When we meticulously reviewed his case, his blood work was stable. There was no atrial fibrillation, no major cholesterol issues. But when I asked him to demonstrate how he typically walked, I immediately recognized the problem. His posture was severely slouched. He gazed straight down while walking, his neck bent at nearly a 45-degree angle. He explained that he started walking that way after a fall 2 years prior, just to be safe. But ironically, that protective instinct had quietly, imperceptibly become the very source of his current risk. We performed a carotid ultrasound while he maintained his usual walking posture, and sure enough, the blood flow through his carotid arteries dramatically dropped when his neck was flexed forward. His body had unluckily adapted to this slouched position, and his brain had been slowly, subtly, receiving less oxygen with every single step. That morning's walk was likely the final push that disrupted a clot that had formed in one of those compressed vessels. Albert was incredibly lucky. The TIA left no permanent damage, but it was a profound wake-up call. I thought walking was helping. He told me, I never knew the way I walked could be the very thing that harmed me. Since then, we've diligently worked together on posture correction, physical therapy, core strengthening, a conscious slight elevation of his gaze, and the strategic use of walking poles to guide proper alignment. His gait is stronger now, his confidence significantly higher. And most importantly, he's no longer silently starving his brain of vital blood. So, if you're over 65 and walking regularly, I urge you to sincerely ask yourself, what does my posture truly look like? Am I habitually looking down at the ground, or am I looking ahead, toward life? Because your brain desperately needs that oxygen. It requires clear, open vessels to function optimally and protect you. Here's what you can implement starting tomorrow. Consciously lift your chin. Keep your gaze approximately 10 to 15 feet ahead of you. Gently pull your shoulders back and down. Imagine a string gently lifting the crown of your head, elongating your spine. Use trekking poles or a lightweight walker if you require additional stability. And diligently stretch your neck and upper back daily. Posture is a muscle memory, and it absolutely can be retrained. Don't wait until the dizziness begins. Don't wait until you hear your speech slur in the mirror. By then, it may tragically already be too late. Protect your brain now. Not just by walking, but by walking right. Albert shared something with me during his last visit that has remained deeply with me. I thought a fall would be my biggest danger. Turns out it was the way I stood. And if posture, something so seemingly small, so ordinary, can profoundly affect blood flow to your brain. Imagine what happens when the very shoes you wear silently throw your delicate balance off and send your blood pressure into chaos. Coming up next, we'll uncover how the wrong footwear shoes that are too hard, too tight, or entirely too flat can disrupt your circulation, dramatically increase your fall risk, and tragically set the stage for a stroke. Stay with me. Habit number 6 may be lurking right under your feet, and you may not even realize it. 6. Wearing the wrong shoes, affecting blood flow and fall risk. For most people, shoes are simply something you put on without a second thought, an ingrained part of your daily routine. But if you're over 65, the specific shoes you choose, their shape, the level of support they offer, the very material of their sole can literally mean the difference between vigilantly protecting your brain and unwittingly triggering a catastrophic stroke. This isn't merely about comfort, it's a critical discussion about circulation, delicate balance, blood pressure regulation, and the insidious formation of blood clots. As a neurologist, I've witnessed firsthand how something as seemingly innocuous as footwear can transform into a hidden health hazard. Over time, the wrong shoes do far more than just cause pain in your feet. They fundamentally disrupt the way you walk, subtly alter your posture, restrict vital circulation in your lower legs, and quietly, yet dangerously, increase both your fall risk and your stroke risk. And the damage isn't always immediate or obvious. It builds slowly, insidiously, step by tiny step, until one day your body tragically pays the ultimate price. Allow me to elaborate. When we are young, our feet are remarkably forgiving and adaptable. But as we age, the protective fat pads on our soles gradually thin, our arches tend to flatten, and our ankle joints stiffen. Shoes that once felt perfectly fine can suddenly cause persistent pain, alarming imbalance, or, more dangerously, insidious compression of the veins and nerves in the lower extremities. This compression significantly slows the crucial blood return from your legs back to your heart. When blood flow becomes sluggish, particularly in individuals already suffering from varicose veins or underlying vascular disease, dangerously promotes the formation of blood clots. Small ones at first, but sometimes, those clots embark on a perilous journey. And when they reach the brain, the result is sudden, profound, and often irreversible. A stroke. But the problem doesn't stop with compromised circulation. Poorly fitting shoes, especially those that are excessively tight, possess rigid, unyielding soles, or are completely flat, subtly yet profoundly change how you walk. They negatively impact your natural stride, alter the angle of your knees, and compromise your overall balance. And when your gait is off kilter, your posture instinctively compensates. You might slouch forward, lean to one side, or excessively tense your hips. All of these compensatory actions place undue strain on your spine, and crucially, on your neck arteries. Over time, this dangerous chain reaction can reduce vital oxygen flow to the brain, cause debilitating instability, and significantly increase the risk of both falling and the formation of dangerous clots. I want to share the compelling story of Mrs. Jeannie Rohr, a sharp 72-year-old retired librarian from Maine. She was active, mentally agile, and incredibly organized, the kind of woman who meticulously color-coded her grocery lists. She walked every morning with her sister around the local high school track, but she invariably wore the same pair of slip-on canvas shoes. Stylish, yes, but undeniably old, and offering absolutely zero arch support. "They're light and easy," she'd tell me. "I don't like bulky sneakers." Then one day, she began experiencing persistent tingling in her toes and occasional lightheadedness after walking. One morning, she felt her right foot completely give out. She fell backward, hitting her head. In the emergency room, her scan tragically revealed a small cerebellar stroke, most likely caused by a clot that had traveled upward. What truly shocked me was her leg ultrasound. She had developed a deep vein thrombosis (DVT), a dangerous clot in her lower leg vein, and the root cause, severely restricted venous return resulting from months of walking in shoes that compressed her feet, limited her calf muscle activation, and offered no supportive structure whatsoever. She had no active heart problems, no atrial fibrillation, no major cholesterol issues, but she had, unknowingly, been wearing the wrong shoes. And those shoes changed her gait, reduced her vital blood circulation, and initiated a dangerous domino effect that nearly stole her independence forever. Jeannie is walking again, thankfully, but now she wears orthopedic shoes, meticulously fitted by a specialist. She confided in me recently, "I never imagined shoes could hurt my brain. I just thought they only hurt my feet." And that, tragically, is the pervasive trap so many seniors fall into. We downplay persistent foot pain. We prioritize convenience, choosing what's easy to slip on. We avoid replacing worn-out shoes until they are literally falling apart. But here's the unvarnished truth. Your feet are your fundamental foundation, and when they are unsupported, everything above them, your knees, your hips, your spine, your precious brain suffers the consequences. Here's what I now recommend to every senior patient. Choose shoes that provide proper, supportive arch support and boast effective shock-absorbing soles. Ensure there is ample room in the toe box. Your toes should never, ever feel cramped. Rigorously avoid completely flat shoes. Your foot requires a slight elevation for healthy, unimpeded circulation. Have your gait and foot shape professionally evaluated every 1 to 2 years by a qualified podiatrist or physical therapist. And critically, never wear shoes with worn-out soles or those that feel uneven when you're walking on flat ground. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on designer footwear. What you need are shoes that reliably support your stride, protect your delicate vessels, and actively preserve your crucial balance. Because one unnoticed misstep, one sudden ankle twist, or one dangerous clot originating from a compressed vein is all it takes to change everything, irreversibly. And while footwear might seem like a small, inconsequential choice, it is often the smallest, most overlooked habits that lead to the biggest, most devastating consequences. But now, let me pose this question to you. What if the very surface you re-walking on the challenging hills, the deceptively uneven sidewalks, the perilous slopes is putting your brain at grave risk every single day? Coming up next, we'll explore how walking on steep or uneven surfaces triggers dangerous blood pressure surges, profoundly strains your heart, and quietly yet insidiously increases your stroke risk without you even realizing it. Stay with me. Habit number 7 may be an intrinsic part of your daily walk, and you might not realize how profoundly dangerous it has become. 7. Walking on steep or uneven surfaces, increasing pressure and instability. Many older adults share with me that walking through their familiar neighborhood or their local park brings them an immense sense of peace and accomplishment. A few gentle hills, some loose gravel, a subtly sloped sidewalk, it all feels like good, challenging exercise, a commendable way to keep the body engaged and strong. But here's the profound, hidden truth that few people genuinely know. For seniors, those seemingly small inclines and deceptively uneven surfaces can quietly, yet dangerously, overload the brain, the heart, and the entire vascular system, thereby creating the perfect, perilous storm for a stroke. We often perceive walking as an entirely harmless, even healing activity, and most of the time, it absolutely is. But it's crucial to understand that not all walking surfaces are created equal. And for someone over 65, your immediate environment becomes an incredibly crucial variable in the ongoing effort to protect your precious brain. When you walk uphill, your heart is forced to pump significantly harder, demanding more from your cardiovascular system. When you walk downhill, your delicate balance is profoundly challenged, requiring greater muscular and neurological coordination. And when the ground beneath your feet is cracked, tilted, rocky, or even slightly uneven, every single step becomes a calculated risk your aging body may simply not be able to handle with the same effortless grace it once did. And this isn't merely about the risk of tripping or falling, which is significant enough. It's about the far more insidious physiological changes that are occurring silently within your body. Let me explain this from a medical perspective. Uneven or inclined walking surfaces cause a rapid, often dramatic shift in blood pressure, particularly the systolic pressure, as your leg muscles demand more vital oxygen and your heart is compelled to respond quickly and powerfully. If your arteries are already stiff or partially narrowed from age-related plaque, this sudden surge in pressure can create dangerous shearing stress on the delicate vessel walls, potentially dislodging existing plaque or significantly contributing to the insidious formation of new blood clots. This doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual, silent, and incredibly dangerous process. Furthermore, the greater the instability beneath your feet, the more your muscles, your eyes, and your brain must work in perfect synchrony to maintain balance and prevent a fall. This constant, energy-draining correction places excessive stress on your vestibular system, your internal balance mechanism, and profoundly impacts your blood pressure regulation mechanisms. In seniors contending with poor sleep, chronic dehydration, or autonomic dysfunction, a condition affecting involuntary bodily functions, this constant struggle can lead to dangerously delayed reaction times and erratic blood flow to the brain, a precarious invitation for transient ischemic attacks or full-blown devastating strokes. Let me tell you about Mr. Raymond Ellis, an 81-year-old former city inspector from Pennsylvania, proud, independent man who walked every single day on the same familiar forest trail near his home. The trail gently wound through rolling hills, over loose gravel, and around occasional tree roots. "It keeps me young," he used to say with a twinkle in his eye. He walked with his trusty cane, maintaining a steady, deliberate pace, but he absolutely detested walking on sidewalks. He thought they were too easy. One morning, after a particularly rainy night, he slipped ever so slightly on a muddy slope. He didn't actually fall, but he felt his heart suddenly race. Then his head began to spin uncontrollably. He sat down, convinced it would pass. Hours later, his worried neighbor found him at home, profoundly confused and alarmingly slurring his words. He had suffered a right-sided parietal stroke, one that tragically affected his memory and his balance. When we meticulously reviewed his case, his blood pressure had surged significantly during that morning walk. Imaging revealed numerous microclots in his cerebral vessels, and the likely trigger was a sudden, intense spike in vascular stress combined with a subtle degree of dehydration. The uneven, inclined terrain he walked every single day, genuinely believing it made him stronger, had, in fact, pushed his delicate cardiovascular system beyond its safety threshold. Raymond later said, his voice filled with regret, "Doc, I truly thought the hills were helping me. I never guessed they were hurting my brain." His story, sadly, is not uncommon. As we age, our baroreceptors, the vital sensors in our body that meticulously regulate blood pressure, become less responsive and efficient. This critical physiological change means your body doesn't adapt to sudden blood pressure shifts as quickly or effectively, especially during physical exertion on changing terrain. A small hill may not feel like a significant challenge, but it could dangerously spike your blood pressure by 30 or even 40 points for several minutes. If you already have existing narrowing in your arteries or tiny plaques in your neck or brain vessels, that extra, sudden pressure can dislodge fragile debris or significantly encourage clots to form and migrate, with potentially devastating consequences. This doesn't mean you should cease walking entirely. On the contrary, walking remains paramount, but it emphatically means you need to walk smarter, with greater awareness. If you're over 65, conscientiously avoid steep inclines and abrupt elevation changes, unless you have been explicitly cleared by your doctor after a thorough evaluation. Choose flat, paved, and consistently even walking paths. Local school tracks, smoothly paved sidewalks, or even indoor shopping malls are excellent, safer options. Always wear shoes that provide a strong, reliable grip and excellent ankle support, especially if you venture into wooded or hilly areas. Pause often during your walks. Allow your heart and brain ample time to catch up and recover. Always carry water. And critically, do not, under any circumstances, push through feelings of fatigue or dizziness. Raymond still walks now, but he does so on the local track. He walks with a trusted friend, and more importantly, he walks with profound awareness. "I didn't lose my independence," he said, "but I learned not to gamble with it." The surfaces you walk on may appear simple, even intimately familiar, but your body isn't the same as it was 10 years ago. It doesn't adapt in silence anymore. It whispers its warnings. It subtly warns you, and if you choose to ignore those crucial signs, it eventually, tragically, breaks. And while uneven terrain certainly poses very real dangers, what happens inside your mind while you walk may be just as critically important. Coming up next, we'll explore how walking while distracted, checking your phone, zoning out, or even lost in a deep daydream can dangerously interfere with your brain's delicate balance systems and lead to devastating consequences. Do not miss habit number 8. You may be losing focus in the very moments your brain needs your full attention the most. 8. Walking while distracted, leading to risky split attention. We live in a world absolutely saturated with distractions. For many seniors, walking represents one of the few precious moments of solitude, a quiet space to think, to breathe deeply, or to catch up on a favorite podcast. But what if I were to tell you that splitting your attention during a walk, even for just a few fleeting seconds, could quietly, insidiously set the stage for a stroke or a serious, life-altering brain injury? It's challenging to imagine, but distraction can be just as perilous as a treacherous, slippery sidewalk or a challenging, steep hill. Especially for older adults, the intricate ability to process multiple sensory signals, simultaneously movement, sound, vision, and balance, diminishes naturally with age. This isn't your fault, it's simply biology. The aging brain becomes inherently more vulnerable to sensory overload and a phenomenon called spatial disconnection, particularly when attempting to multitask during physical activity like walking. You might genuinely believe that listening to music, engaging in a phone call, or mentally rehearsing your grocery list during a walk is entirely harmless. But what occurs in those crucial moments of distraction is profound and dangerous. Your brain consciously shifts vital resources away from immediate physical awareness and redirects them toward cognitive processing. That translates to significantly less focus on your posture, your precarious footing, your breathing, and most critically, the subtle life-saving signals your body sends when something is going gravely wrong. This isn't merely about the increased risk of tripping over a crack in the pavement. It's profoundly about what happens when you fail to notice that your vision is becoming blurry, or that one of your feet feels strangely heavy. or that your speech has suddenly become slurred. These are often the earliest, most critical signs of a stroke. If you're profoundly distracted, you might tragically miss them, and that delay, even by a mere few minutes, can cost you your cherished independence, your precious memory, or even your very life. Let me recount the poignant story of Mrs. Donna Harwick, a vibrant 77-year-old retired high school English teacher from Indiana. Donna was active, intellectually sharp, and adored her morning routine. She walked every single day around her neighborhood with her headphones firmly in place, catching up on her favorite true crime podcasts. She once told me, "It makes the walk go by faster. I hardly even noticed the time." But one particular morning, something irrevocably changed. While walking and deeply engrossed in her podcast, she suddenly felt a strange, inexplicable weakness in her left leg. She stumbled slightly, but continued to walk. "I figured I was just stiff," she later recalled. What she tragically didn't realize was that her speech had already begun to slur, and her left arm had dropped, unnoticed. A neighbor passing by observed her pause near a fence and immediately sensed something was terribly amiss. They promptly called 911. By the time paramedics arrived, Donna was unable to speak. She had suffered a right hemisphere stroke, one that profoundly affected her motor coordination and expressive language. Imaging revealed a dangerous clot lodged in her middle cerebral artery, and her blood work indicated moderate dehydration and slightly elevated blood pressure, but no major underlying disease. "We believe the clot had likely formed slowly, possibly due to cumulative stress, age-related vascular stiffening, and her consistent dehydration, but the critical, deciding factor, she utterly failed to notice the early, crucial signs because she was deeply distracted." She confessed to me later, through tears and arduous rehab exercises. "If I hadn't had those earbuds in, maybe I would have realized sooner. Maybe I could have gotten help before it was too late." Donna survived, thankfully, but her speech is now slow and deliberate. She uses a walker for mobility, and she is no longer plugged in. During her walks, you see, for an older adult, every single second your brain spends processing a distraction is a second it isn't diligently monitoring your body. That is a luxury younger people can perhaps afford. But for seniors, especially those managing high blood pressure, diabetes, or vascular disease, your brain is already working incredibly hard to maintain balance, regulate breathing, and sustain crucial awareness. Add a podcast, a phone call, or even a profound daydream to that delicate equation, and you dangerously tip the balance in the wrong direction. Distraction doesn't merely increase your fall risk, it dramatically lowers the chance that you'll recognize a stroke as it begins to unfold. And with strokes, time is literally brain. Every minute without crucial treatment destroys nearly 2 million brain cells. Your absolute best defense isn't just medication or diet. It is profound awareness. Here's what I now tell all my older patients. When you walk, make it a sacred, focused activity. No headphones, no phone calls. Don't rehearse arguments in your head or mentally plan dinner. Walk with intention. Be fully present in the moment. Listen attentively to your body, because it is always speaking to you. And if something, anything, feels off, a strange tug in your leg, a sudden chill, a peculiar taste in your mouth, a stumble that seems too sudden and unexplained, stop. Call someone immediately. Get checked by a medical professional. It could genuinely be nothing, or it could be the silent, terrifying start of something like, because distraction is not just a mental state. It tragically steals your ability to protect yourself precisely when your body whispers its most urgent warnings. Donna's story is a difficult one, but she shares it with profound purpose now. "I used to walk to escape my thoughts," she said. "Now I walk to listen to them." And while distraction can pull your mind away from the present, there's one more critical walking habit that strikes even when everything else seems perfect. One that occurs not during the walk itself, but subtly, insidiously, after it's over, while you are sleeping. Coming up next, we'll uncover how walking too late in the evening can quietly disrupt your delicate blood pressure patterns, dangerously overstimulate your nervous system, and set the perfect treacherous stage for a stroke in the middle of the night. Stay with me. Habit number 9 may be the one that hits hardest, precisely because it feels like the safest choice. 9. Walking too late in the evening, triggering nighttime blood pressure spikes. It sounds innocent enough, doesn't it? A peaceful evening walk after dinner. The sun has gently set. The air is cool and refreshing. The world feels quiet and calm. For many seniors, this time of day feels like the safest, most tranquil part of their routine. But what if I were to tell you that walking too late in the evening may actually be silently, imperceptibly setting you up for a stroke while you sleep. This habit, often undertaken with the very best of intentions, can tragically trigger a cascade of physiological changes in the aging body that are far more dangerous than they initially appear. Let's begin by understanding what the body naturally does at night. Typically, between 2 o'clock a.m. and 4 o'clock a.m., your brain and heart enter their most vulnerable period. Blood pressure tends to spike sharply during the crucial REM rapid eye movement sleep stage. It's a natural, inherent response tied to complex hormonal shifts and your sleep cycles. In healthy young adults, the body robustly buffers this shift with strong vascular tone and efficient fluid pressure regulation. But in older adults, especially those with stiff arteries, existing high blood pressure, or a history of cardiovascular issues, this early morning blood pressure surge can be dangerously deadly. Now, critically, combine that inherent risk with a late walk, one that concludes within an hour or so before you settle into bed. What most people don't fully realize is that physical exercise, even a gentle walk, actively stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. This is the very same system that revs up your heart rate, increases adrenaline production, and activates your muscles, preparing your body for fight or flight. After a late walk, your brain naturally remains more alert, your heart continues to work a little harder, and your blood vessels remain constricted for longer periods into the night. This prolonged overstimulation doesn't just delay your ability to fall into truly restorative sleep. It keeps your entire system on high alert during the exact hours when your body should be peacefully winding down and resetting itself. And that profound imbalance, that failure to adequately reset, can tragically trigger a stroke during sleep. I remember one patient with crystalline clarity, Mr. Dennis Monroe, an 80-year-old from South Carolina, a retired veteran with a remarkably sharp mind and a gentle, soft smile. He walked every evening at 8 p.m., sometimes even later. "Helps me digest," he'd say, "and I love seeing the stars." He genuinely believed it helped him sleep, and in many superficial ways, it did, but tragically, not in the way he had hoped. One night, Dennis didn't wake up at his usual 6 o'clock a.m. His worried wife found him in bed, his breathing shallow, his face alarmingly slack on one side. He had suffered a massive ischemic stroke in the early morning hours. The clot had lodged in his posterior cerebral artery, devastatingly affecting his vision and balance centers. When we meticulously reviewed his medical history, he had no active heart disease. His cholesterol was perfectly under control. He never smoked, but his blood pressure had spiked to an alarming 190/110 just after 3 o'clock a.m. The neurologic, imaging, and lab markers consistently pointed to a common but tragically overlooked cause: autonomic dysregulation triggered by late physical exertion, leading to nocturnal hypertension and dangerous clot formation. His evening walks, while outwardly gentle, had become the precarious tipping point in a physiological system already inherently vulnerable to critical pressure shifts. Dennis survived, but not without profound consequences. He now navigates his world with significant help. He can no longer drive, a deeply felt loss, and the hardest part for him was the crushing realization that he had, in his mind, done everything right. He abstained from alcohol. He meticulously watched his salt intake. He never smoked a day in his life. But no one had ever informed him that the specific time he chose to walk could unknowingly undo all the good he was diligently trying to build. And this, precisely, is why I share his story, and the stories of the other brave men and women I've treated. Because they did what countless seniors do. They followed common advice, but they didn't realize that their bodies had fundamentally changed with age, and that those small, overlooked factors could change everything overnight. Here's what I want every senior watching this to engrave into their memory. Your body is not the same as it was at 40. The timing of your activity, the very surfaces you walk on, your choice of shoes, your hydration levels, your posture, your profound awareness, all of it matters more now than ever before. The walk itself is not the inherent danger, but walking without knowledge, walking without careful consideration and care, that, precisely, is where the real and silent risk lies. It silently forms dangerous blood clots. It tragically raises blood pressure when it should naturally fall. It insidiously narrows arteries that are already fighting diligently to stay open. And it accomplishes all of this in terrifying silence. Until the morning, you don't wake up the same person you were the night before. So, what should you do? Walk. Yes, absolutely. But walk smarter, with greater intention and wisdom. Choose mornings or early afternoons for your excursions. Walk where the terrain is flat, where it's unequivocally safe. where your mind can fully focus on your body's sensations and needs. Walk with trusted friends. Always walk with water. Walk with profound intention. You are not too old to move your body, but you are undeniably too wise to walk without deeply understanding what your body is trying to tell you every single day. One last patient, Margaret Hill, 84, from Iowa, shared something with me that I will truly never forget. After bravely recovering from a mini-stroke, which was likely caused by a clot that formed after a long evening walk in cold, dry air, she said, with a quiet solemnity, "I was walking toward health, but in the wrong direction. Let's collectively change that direction. Let's walk with purpose. Not just to simply live longer, but to live better, with our minds sharp, our balance strong, and our cherished independence fully intact. Because now you know." And with that invaluable knowledge comes profound power. The power to meticulously protect your brain, one mindful step at a time. These vital lessons are meant to genuinely inspire you to live your life fully and authentically, with informed confidence. Now, I would genuinely love to hear from you. Please take a moment to reflect and share just one thing you've learned from this video and plan to apply in your own life. Let's wholeheartedly support each other on this shared journey toward embracing these profound truths. If you found this video beneficial and insightful, please leave a comment with 1. If it didn't quite resonate, feel free to comment with 0 to provide your honest feedback. Your input means an immense amount to us and helps us continuously improve. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for even more impactful content like this. Thank you so very much for watching. And here's to living life robustly, entirely on your own terms.